thought I must uh, give a lecture and get to know you and your forum a little better. So, my personal greetings to all of you and the office bearers. I'm here, so you can start.
Yes, yes, Subhangi ji, please start.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Namaste and good afternoon, everyone. I am Shubhangi Rajabhu Amle, a research student of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, Marathwada University, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, Maharashtra. On the behalf of Indian Research Scholars Association, I welcome to all of you. This is a platform whose motive is to exchange creative, constructive, promotional, and progressive dialogue with research scholars across India and neighbor countries. The association has been organizing lectures by experts from across the country on various topics. Similarly, today our guest speaker is Professor Rumki Basu ma'am, who is the head of Center for Public Policy and Governance, Institute of Social Sciences, New Delhi. Organizing committee of today's lecture is our coordinator Vikash Kumar sir, co-convener Himanshu Tripathi sir, and co-convener Indira ma'am.
Okay, okay. So, Subhangi ji, okay, you.
No, sir, your voice is not clear.
Okay, now my voice is clear. Now my voice is clear, Subhangi ji.
Yes, sir. Please give welcome.
Okay, okay, thank you. So, first of all, I would like to congratulate and I would like to welcome uh, the all executive committee members of the Indian Research Scholars Association. And I would like to welcome in the core of my heart and in the depth of my heart to today's our eminent speaker, Professor Rumki Basu madam. And I would like to welcome the convener of this lecture series, Subhangi Amleji and Himanshu Tripathi ji and Gobind Yadav ji. And today, many friends of the political science and various subjects have joined this lecture series. I can see on the screen Bisal, he's my junior, and one some participants had joined from the foreign. I can see on the screen Mujahda had joined from the Tajikistan, and Papi had joined from the Bangladesh. So I would like to welcome on the behalf of me and on the behalf of the Indian Research Scholars Association I will not take much and more time because I have also seen the CV of the Professor Rumki ma'am, and because I am also a scholar of the political science, so I will not take much and more time. So I will invite again to Subhangi madam for the further proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now I would like to invite Himanshu Tripathi sir for giving brief introduction of our guest. Himanshu Tripathi. Yes, sir.
Hello and a jolly good afternoon to you all. My name is Himanshu Tripathi and I'm a research scholar in the Department of Political Science at Dr. Hari Singh Gaur University, Sagar. I would like to welcome you all on behalf of Indian Research Scholars Association in yet another lecture in our ongoing webinar series. The topic for today's lecture is Public Governance in India, the Challenges of Amrit Kaal Period. Through the same, we were lucky enough to have with us today Professor Rumki Basu, Head of Center for Policy, Public Policy and Governance at ISS New Delhi. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us today and
Thank you.
for agreeing us to do this. Professor Basu has completed her MPhil and PhD from JNU New Delhi and has taught in many renowned universities, including Jamia Millia Islamia University, where she had been a professor of public administration for more than 15 years before joining the Institute of Social Sciences as a head at the Center for Public Policy and Governance. Ma'am also had Ma'am also has more than a dozen books and countless research articles to her name from the topmost national and international publications, and has won many awards and accolades, including the prestigious Mary Hamilton Award for a contribution in the field of public administration. And so without further ado, I would like to invite ma'am to take the stage and address the session. Over to you.
I'm audible, I hope. Everyone can hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay. First of all, I would like to thank the Indian Research Scholars Association, headed by its coordinator, Shri Vikash Kumar from Indira Gandhi National Tribal University, Amarkantak, the convener, Shubhangi Amle, from Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, Maharashtra, the co-convener, Himanshu Tripathi from Dr. Hari Singh Gaur Central University, and Govind Yadav from Guru Ghasidas Vishwavidyalaya, Bilaspur. Thank you all for inviting me today. I was definitely interested in giving a lecture in a forum like this because I felt that in a research scholars forum, it gives me the freedom not only to look at India's public administration journey as a discipline in looking at Indian administration and its challenges in practice, and also looking at how the subject of public administration has grown and evolved in amidst the challenges of the developing world and amidst the challenges of a growing democracy, wherein we celebrate 75th year of our republic. As the world's largest democracy, why is it that the Indian politico-administrative model has drawn so much attention from all over the globe, not only because of its sustainability as a model, that is, not only because of the sustainability of the Indian model of administration and the Indian model of democracy in 75 years, because that is a unique, unparalleled experiment in the world. Among the unique, unparalleled experiments which India has been doing and can be credited for, earlier we used to credit India for having the longest, largest, most amended written constitution in the world. All of you who are students of social sciences, especially political science, would know this, that we had a constitution which is the largest and the longest in the developing world. And today we can, after 75 years of our republic, we can still say that we've kept the basic structure unamended, despite over 100 amendments to cope up with the changing demands of a growing democracy, the world's largest democracy today in the developing world. What a big challenge we've undertaken as a young nation from 1947 onwards is something that can be documented today, and we are not the only ones who are documenting it. The whole world is documenting India's challenges, India's achievements, India's growing prowess in so many sectors. So, therefore, let me begin with this positive note that we, as students of political science, we, as students of social sciences, must understand what is it that we need to take credit for today, very justifiably take credit for, and what are some of the challenges that remain as a growing nation, as the world's largest democracy, in its 75th year of the republic. What are the challenges of this politico-administrative model that we've given to the world as a unique model? How can we take on the further challenges of the Amrit Kaal period? And you all know what is today called the Amrit Kaal period is the 25 years run up to 2047, when we shall be celebrating 100 years of our republic. So, having said that, and having begun my, as a prelude to my lecture, which I always say I'll just take 30 minutes. I apologize right away that it might be a little longer, but please bear with me because there's so much that I always wish to pack in a small lecture that maybe I take a little more time. But anyhow, I'll try to be brief, try to give you the highlights of this 75 years journey as a republic, as a growing democracy. Therefore, we will remain an unparalleled experiment because our models have survived, and today we can take credit for having achieved what no country, and I say this with a lot of confidence, no other developing country in this world today has taken the challenges that India has taken and yet survived with the two models that everybody is talking about globally are growing, are not growing anymore, our established democratic model, our constitutional model, because we have the world's largest, longest constitution, and also an administrative model, which of course was based on the Weberian model of a neutral administration. But what are the challenges even this administrative model, which has survived and has given the kind of public service delivery which, despite all its failures, despite the failures and in implementation of our public policies, very often we talk of the implementation gaps. Yes, it's been a struggle for a bureaucracy which was trained in the colonial mode of only having to do law and order and revenue administration. The Indian civil services, if you look at its heritage, if you look at the training of the Indian civil services, which is a product of British times, they were trained only in revenue and law and order administration. When they had to take on the challenges of a growing democracy, a growing republic, and of course, take the mandate from the constitution itself, because do remember that the Indian civil services has a constitutional recognition. They, UPSC has a constitutional recognition, and of course, Article 311 has a constitutional recognition. So our civil services have firm foundations and footings. Despite all of that, in this 75-year-old journey, our civil services were not trained for development administration. They were not trained for the kind of best practices that they are showing to the world today, because they are unique. No country civil service has had to face the kind of challenges that our civil services faced. And it had nothing to do with maintenance of law and order and collection of revenue, which they were trained for. They had to be taking on the challenges of development administration, and yet they were not trained for it. And look at the way the development discourse went in these 75 years. Not easy. So the tasks, many of them, they've done with a lot of credit. There are today, there's a digital transformation of our civil services, which is globally lauded. We are talking of Vikasit Bharat and the challenges of the Amrit Kaal generation, your generation, really, the next 25 years. What are the public policy challenges? We are talking of all of that. And who will take the challenge? The public policy makers, implementers, reviewers, changers, everything will be done by our administration, our civil services, though in hand with the political regime. That is the model. That is the Weberian model, of course, where there will be changes in government, but the bureaucracy continues. So there's a continuity in the bureaucracy who will have to serve all kinds of political regimes, which is exactly what our civil services have done in these 75 years, both in the states and in the center. There have been changes of government, the changes of ideologies, changes of vision, and yet the civil services had to work with them. So therefore, all the changes had to be coped with. Political ideologies, differences had to be coped with, and yet service delivery had to happen. Development had to happen. All of these were challenges for administration, and look at the way they have taken it. Now, therefore, when you talk of Indian administration, Indian public governance, as we are discussing, what are the challenges of public governance in India today? We are talking of this 75-year continuity in which our administration functioned within a political regime. So, when you're talking of administration, remember that there are social hierarchies, there are historical legacies, there are political dictations and public policies coming from different political regimes, and there is the public, because the public administration is meant for the public. It is supposed to be of the public, by the public, and for the public, whom they have to serve. Not as political masters, as they used to serve in British times, not as governance masters, but as servants of the people. It's a huge changed mandate where power is in the hands of the people. Power is in the hands of the political regime. And you have to serve the public in a democratic country where they are actually constitutionally the masters of the public policies, of governance, and every institution, because it is a democracy. So, within this framework of democracy, administration had to perform. So, that is the unwritten, evolving subtext of any discussion on Indian administration. Remember, there are the unwritten subtext is the constitution, the rule of law, the constitutional legal framework, and the differing uh, uh, ideologies of political regimes. Within these two, the Indian administration has functioned for 75 years. So it's a huge, challenging mandate right from the beginning. And, how they have functioned. Now, at independence, of course, the project of building a national identity, transcending the particularistic identities of caste, tribe, language, religion, and region, was recognized as the most important challenge facing the nation. So, we let's say, what was the mandate that the constitution gives, and what was the mandate of the early years, that you have to look at the project of building up a nation with a marked preference for the developmental content. So nation building had to be defined in terms of developmental markers. It had to, of course, there was a cultural identity, but that cultural identity or the idea of India came to be challenged many times. You know that not only regionalist and secessionist movements challenged it, majoritarian politics challenged it, assertions of minorities alleging exclusion and unfair absorption in that assimilative concept of Indian identity. All of this came to be challenged from different groups, different people, different identities in India. So the cultural atmosphere may vary, may differ, but the major nation building idea through development always remained. So, development came to be a huge end product of our nation building idea. So, that given that, public governance functioned. And today, when we look at case studies of public governance in India, we say that there are clearly identifiable features of Indian public governance. It's resilient, yes, because it has survived for 75 years. It's again fragile because it does not perform to the maximum level. There are implementation gaps, and it somehow muddles through, without showing optimum performance. So, Indian public governance is criticized, sometimes lauded that yes, it is resilient, it is there forever, and despite all deficiencies, the model, the civil services is a like a rock. It's like the steel frame that holds our nation together. But there are frustrating experiences of the administrative state from media reports and also from a lot of the marginalized and vulnerable groups who felt that public service delivery was very poor, very weak. It does not, the last mile delivery does not happen, and that a lot of corruption exists, whereby between the state, between the state, with all its good intentions, with the finest public policies, wanting to deliver, and the public who the targeted public group, which is supposed to be the recipients of state policies, in between comes the bureaucracy, in between comes the intermediaries, and that is where the story very often ends. The marginalized groups, the vulnerable groups, the targeted groups, the beneficiary groups do not get what they are supposed to get because of the bureaucracy. This is a common story. All of us who've grown up in the, whether you have been a student or a teacher or anybody in civil society, all of us who have been familiar with the Indian democracy and Indian bureaucracy functioning after independence, we all know this story, this critical story of not having last mile delivery, of somewhere corruption, because of corruption, the bureaucracy couldn't function, of huge implementation gaps in the working, and so on. So, therefore, today, the Amrit Kaal generation, which is your generation, the generation which is going to do research, which is actually going to understand public policy and advocate certain kinds of policies, because those of you who are in higher education, those of you who are doing research, as research scholars, you should ask the right questions as to what is happening to Indian public governance, Indian public policy, who has delivered, who has not delivered, if not, why, what is the story about India, and wherein you have to put in the efforts at giving or putting more pressure on the politico administrative regime to deliver public service to the poor. So, therefore, we at 75, it's a good time to ask fundamental questions about our polity, about our economy, about our bureaucracy, and where are we going from here. These are important questions, because from 2014 onwards, that major policies have come: the National Education Policy 2020, the National Health Policy 2017. So, in health and education, which are very important social goals, which of course needs excellent public service delivery. So new policies have come. So you have to understand what are the benefits and what are the challenges of these new policies, the national education policy or the national health policy, and how they can be strengthened to see that all the implementation gaps are plugged and service delivery reaches the last mile poor. That is the biggest challenge of the next 25 years, and you have to see what we can do about it. Now, you have to understand that India at 47 uh, and India at 2024 or India at 2047 is not the same, has not been the same. There have been a lot of things have happened, and we have to understand that the pace of development certainly uh, has been strengthened over a period of time. So, what are these broad trends and shifts in public governance from, let's say, 1990s? Before that, the new economic policies had not come. We had the markers were different in the sense of social. We were talking of socialism. We were talking of Garibi Hatao. We were talking of rate of growth with equity. All excellent goals, excellent public policy goals. But till the 1990s, if you look at certain achievements which are milestones, yes, food security is one. The Green Revolution had happened. And, that was a big achievement we could feed our people. It doesn't mean that hunger did not exist. It doesn't mean that malnutrition did not exist. No, but at least in big terms, food security was achieved in the sense of we had enough food grown in India to be able to feed our population. So, therefore, the Green Revolution was a big, big story. But what was the rate of growth? It was termed as the Hindu rate of growth, which was just about 3%. Now, with that 3%, can you abolish poverty? Poverty was in the range of 60 plus, above 60% poverty with a 3% growth rate. Obviously, Garibi could not be hut out. It was very much there. And so till 1990s, of course, it was an accident that we had to go for new economic policies. We had to go for globalization, liberalization, privatization. And that brings in another story. You know, from more and more of state, from more and more of public governance, the command economy, the socialist pattern, we took a U turn. And that U turn meant more of the market. In the state market divide, less and less of state, more and more of market. Less and less of public investment, more and more of private investment. Privatization of public sector units if they didn't show profit. So these new goals started from 1990s. So more, as I said, some reforms had to happen. Some administrative reforms, public governance reforms had to happen if you had these kind of changed goals of state and new economic policies. So what happened after the 1990s, which in public governance, which can be called landmark changes? Among the landmark changes, you have inception of e-governance, inculcation of data analytics capabilities at the district and block levels, envisaged as early as 1978 from the Dantwala Committee report, subsequent efforts in the 1980s. So, inception of e-governance, inculcation of data analytics capabilities at the district and block levels. That's a big story. Then, increasing shifts in governance in the sense of process from paper-based business processes to digital. That's a big change. Then, of course, economic reforms, NEP, comes into effect from 1990s, which progressively changed the role of the district collector. Progressively changed the role of the district collector or district administration. Then there's an increasing policy shift to mitigate inter-regional inequality, which is through policies like backward regions grant fund, Rashtriya Samvikas Yojana, PM Rural Development Mission, etc. The idea is that you have to mitigate inter-regional inequalities. Strides were also being made in financial inclusion and improving access to public service delivery. Finally, from 2014, there's a really big change in all these initiatives. They are ongoing initiatives. They didn't start from 2014. There were ongoing initiatives from 1990s onwards, that is, administrative reforms, process reforms, substantive reforms. Then you have some giant initiatives being taken from 2014 onwards. Let me give you some examples. PM Gati Shakti, Swamitva, National Digital Health Mission, National Digital Education Architecture, newly drafted National Data Accessibility Policy, possibilities for collaboration between government, research, and private sector. All of this got a big push after 2014, and advanced analytics and other technology based solutions to improve service delivery in rural areas also got a big push from 2014 onwards, and digitalized metrics in government service delivery. These are the big shifts in public governance from 1990s onwards. All of them had started with new economic policies but got a big push forward from 2014 onwards. Today, because of a lack of time, let me cut a long story short. We are talking of maximum governance, minimum government.
No, ma'am. Ma'am,
Yes,
it's a great opportunity to us is if you will be speak more.
yes. Quickly, let me
Yes,
tell.
yes, ma'am.
Efforts are being made for benchmarking governance. Benchmarking Good Governance Index 2021, District Good Governance Index 2022, National Services Delivery Assessment 2022. Then we have, you know, and the results you can see from the portals. Kerala topped the state portals with Haryana and Rajasthan being the top performers in the service portals. Then NESDA 2021, the framework covered government to citizen C and B services across 7 sectors. What are they? Finance, labor and employment, education, local governance and utility services, social welfare, environment and tourism sectors. NESDA framework covered all of this. So in our NESDA 2021 study, it was found that 1,400 services across all states and UTs were evaluated. And once you start this competition between districts, competition between states, things definitely public service delivery improves. Then adoption of e-office 7.0. That's a big change. 25 lakh e-files are currently operational in the central secretariat, and the number of physical files came down to around 10 lakhs. Then CP Grams is the public grievance platform available 24 by 7 with security features marked. All of this leads to the Vision India at 2047 on governance, which talks about futuristic governance models, and thematic areas have been carved out: energy and net zero, education, healthcare, water, infrastructure, communications, transport, mobility, urbanization, and so on, mapped out by young civil servants of the Amrit. The idea is let young civil servants who are currently in their 8th to 10th year of civil service, they should map out the priorities of the Amrit Kaal generation. They should know how to do plan for the governance of the Amrit Kaal generation. That's the idea that one gets. Now, this brings me to what we today call, what are the, now let me sum up by saying, with all this 75 year changes that I've tried to map, and how everything has been accelerated from 2014 onwards, we can say that what are the basic hallmarks of this 75-year-old journey. The first is that today, what are the achievements? The first is that the politico, I'm repeatedly saying, administrative model that India has given to this world is absolutely an unique, unparalleled one in the third world or the developing world. Because with that constitution where we began and what we have done with governance is not exactly the same. Governance is more and more changing, innovative, with constitutional amendments, best practices. We have become world leaders in digital infrastructure. We have become world leaders in so many things which is unimaginable in digital public health. We have become a global name in assistive technologies, wherein you can map all the changes in a district. And the aspirational district program, please check it out. What are the highlights of the aspirational district program, and how they have won global accolades for changing the poorest and the most backward districts of India into some kind of, the road mapping or the mapping that's been done for them. They may actually achieve the goals before. But finally and lastly, which is important, which puts us, into uh, global standards, which talks of global standards. Today, when I say public governance, its goals, it is actually sustainable development goals given by the UN in 2015, SDGs, which have to be fulfilled by 2030. That is the mega goal and mega vision for every signatory country in the third world. So it's not as though it has to be developed in India anymore. Please remember, today, when we are talking of the goals of governance or goals of good governance, that has been mapped out already by the UN in 2014. India is one of the signatory countries. We have to achieve all these goals by 2030. And our current political regime has vowed that they will achieve all the goals by 2030 because we are a signatory country. So, SDG, performing on SDG is not optional, it is mandatory. And that's the mega goal of good governance in the world today. Please remember that it's not something India is setting. And we have accepted it and we have to perform. Regarding other goals, you will be surprised to know that the best performing states of the 28 states of India, whether you are a state or a union territory, the best has been mapped out by Niti Aayog through their governance indices. Look at Niti Aayog's human development indices. Look at Niti Aayog's growth indices, human development indices, wherein all 28 states are put into competition with each other. And look at how much a state can achieve in India itself compared to another state which is rocked down. So what are you trying to say? India is an achiever or not achiever? If one state can do something, the others can also follow. The idea is set the standards, set the norms, set the goals, say what is the achiever, who is the achiever, and how they have done it. So every state has done brilliantly in something or the other. Put them in competition with each other and say, this is India, mid level is also India, lowest level is also India. So, lowest level is also India. So, you have one state has to emulate another. It's nothing unachievable anymore. So, public governance has SDG goals to follow. Within India, there is a lot of variation in achievement markers and in human development markers, the final goal is SDG plus growth with equity. Equity means inequality, and inequality is generated by differentiated achievements of different states of India on the same goal. That is how inequality starts, and that is how democratic deficits start. So, democracy is all about doing things without force. How is it that China has achieved all SDG goals? China has achieved all SDG goals. India has not. So the answer is clear. They have done it through coercive methods because they are a one party state. We are a multi party democracy. We cannot do everything through coercion. So it will take time. So India's journey from a soft state, you understand the meaning of soft, that is, we are down in implementation, to a hard state like China, will definitely in this journey there'll be ups and downs in our democracy. But if we are clear about our goals, that is, there is nothing of an administrative deficit. There is nothing like a political deficit. Deficits are, if you go by the 28 states, their best practices, their achievements, everything is achievable. Everything is achievable through democracy, through our own model. Some states are super achievers, some are middle level achievers, some are low, which leads to the same citizen of India not getting full public service delivery if he's residing in one state. If he's residing in another state, will get something, and if he's residing in another state, he may not get the same public goods and services. This is real inequality generated by differentiated achievements of different states. This is what we have to stop. And I will end with a positive note that all of you are researchers. I can give you at least 100 questions to research on Indian democracy, Indian politics, Indian public governance, Indian administration in these 75 years. Please look at the extraordinary importance of India, the extraordinary importance of a country which is the world's largest democracy and is struggling to achieve SDGs because it can't do it through force. It has to do through non coercive methods. We are a democracy. And yet, I'm still saying that everything of all of these SDG goals are achievable because some state in India has done it, and they will set the norms for the rest of India. Put whole of India in competition with one another, and you will see how things will result after in 2047. You are the Amrit Kaal generation. You will see 1947, and you will see that India can be transformed just by achievements of which are entirely possible because there are states in India which are doing it. So kindly research. I'd like to end by saying that the India story at 75 is an extraordinarily consequential and researchable one because you're students, you're doing research. So, therefore, if you look at this profound development journey of India in 75 years, if you look at the profound journey of our politico-administrative model, you will realize that even India did not realize that it had set so many world standards. And I'll take another half an hour to discuss that, so I have to stop. Please check the news anywhere in YouTube or anywhere in social media or even in print media. What are the standards India set in the world today through democracy? So, therefore, we need not compete with China. Forget about China. We seem to be obsessed with China. They'll do it their way, we can do it our way. And still, by 2047, we would have achieved all the SDG goals. Because here in India, some states have done it. They have set the norms, others have just to follow. That's all I had to say. So be positive, be thinking young Indians, be thinking young researchers who, please, all of you, do serious research on the Indian models of governance and what have we achieved through democracy. And our future does not look bad at all to me. We need to be more energetic and extremely positive and set our own standards and achieve where we want to go in 2047. I might not live long enough to see 2047, but you will. So mark my words, we will achieve what we wish to if we have the will to. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Actually, when I have sent the invitation to ma'am, so ma'am has told me that I will be speak only 1.5 hours. But मैंने सोचा था कि मैम एक बार when man will be start then man will be finished your lecture. जब तक हम लोगों को satisfied नहीं कर देंगे तब तक नहीं वो बंद करेगी. Uh, so now I want to invite two participants. If Subhangi madam, you have writing the brief, so you can present. Yes,
Yes,
Subhangi.
sir. Thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful session. Actually, I am a student of commerce, but it will fruitful for me, and it will help me a lot as a Indian citizen. Everyone should know constitution and all things. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am explained in detail public governance challenges from pre-independence period to till the date. As ma'am said, development of each group of society plays an important role in nation building. Ma'am also flashed a light on LPG policy and various policies and goals of good governance for the nation. Now, it's a question answer session.
Yes,
If
yes.
anybody has a query, you can directly ask or um, write in chat box.
And I request to participants, you can ask in Hindi and English, no issue.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Please
yes,
go
yes.
ahead.
Yes.
हाँ विकास जी नमस्कार.
सर प्रणाम सर
हाँ
मैडम
मैडम प्रणाम मैडम.
जी जी जी.
प्रोफेसर
मैंने
उदय
अभी
भान सर
चैट
फ्रॉम
बॉक्स
द
में
सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ हिमाचल प्रदेश.
Okay.
माई सेल्फ डॉक्टर उदय भान सिंह, एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर, सेंटर फॉर दीनदयाल उपाध्याय स्टडीज, सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी हिमाचल प्रदेश धर्मशाला.
जी जी
मैडम मैंने अभी चैट बॉक्स में भी लिखा,
जी.
मेरा कोर्स सब्जेक्ट पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है और मैम मैंने मास्टर्स इन पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन जो है पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में किया और आपकी पुस्तकों को पढ़ करके मैंने किया है.
Thank
और
you
मेरा
so
सपना होता था कि मैं कभी भविष्य में मैं अपने जीवन में रुमकी मैडम को से मैं मिलूंगा और उनसे मिलूंगा जिनकी किताबों ने मुझे पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के फील्ड में, आपकी वो बुक छोटी सी पतली सी बुक जो है पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, एलिमेंट्स ऑफ पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, बेसिक जो बुक है,
जी
एंड आई
जी.
वाज प्रिपेयरिंग फॉर यूपीएससी एग्जाम. तो जिससे भी पूछो तो केवल आपकी बुक को ही रिकमेंड करते थे कि अगर आपको बेसिक समझना है पब्लिक एड की तो मैडम की बुक को पढ़ो. तो मैंने उसका इंग्लिश वर्जन भी, इंग्लिश बेसिकली तो आपने इंग्लिश में लिखा है उसे, लेकिन हिंदी वर्जन भी मैं ढूंढता रहा लेकिन मिला तो, लेकिन वो उसका जो ट्रांसलेशन था वो बड़ा अजीबोगरीब था, लेकिन फिर भी
आई अंडरस्टैंड. बिल्कुल
हाँ.
बिल्कुल जी. सारे ट्रांसलेशंस जो हुए हैं
हाँ,
आपके,
तो मैडम मेरा आज वो सपना पूरा हुआ है कि मैं आपसे ऑनलाइन ही सही और विकास के माध्यम से ही सही, मेरा वो सपना जो मेरी पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन की फील्ड में गुरु हैं, गुरु माता की तरह हैं, मैं उनसे आज मिला, उनको सुना, मैंने बहुत कुछ
बता दूं आपके स्टेट में मैं कम से कम 2 बार साल में जाती हूँ. आई एम अ ग्रेट एडमायरर of Himachal Pradesh, its human development indicators और जो भी एजुकेशन और पब्लिक हेल्थ में जो कुछ भी मैंने देखा सोशल डेवलपमेंट में हिमाचल प्रदेश में, मैं बहुत खुश हूँ देखकर. और कम से कम आज तक आई मीन ऑलमोस्ट लास्ट 20 years मैं आपके स्टेट में जाती रही 2 बार इन अ ईयर. सो आई एम वेरी वेरी फेमिलियर विद द टेरेन ऑफ हिमाचल प्रदेश.
मैडम इस बार जब आप आइएगा तो धर्मशाला आइएगा आपका
जी, जी।
आपका शिष्य, आपका पुत्रवत शिष्य जो है यहाँ पर प्रतीक्षा
बिल्कुल,
करेगा आपकी।
बिल्कुल।
और
जी,
मैं विकास, जो मेरे छोटे भाई हैं, मित्र भी हैं, उनसे मैं
जी,
नंबर लूंगा मैं आपका।
बिल्कुल, बिल्कुल।
मैं
बिल्कुल सर।
पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के फील्ड
हाँ,
में जो कुछ भी मैंने सीखा, जाना, समझा, वो केवल और केवल आपकी पुस्तक के माध्यम से ही। और
थैंक यू।
कुरुक्षेत्र यूनिवर्सिटी से मैंने पीएचडी की प्रोफेसर मोहिंदर सिंह जी के अंडर में किया था।
जी, मैं कोशिश तो करती हूँ कि ऑल द स्टेट्स ऑफ इंडिया में जाऊं, और जाती रही हूँ। सो
जी
आई एम मोर और लेस फेमिलियर विद इंडियन एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन एंड अदर डेवलपमेंट इंडिकेटर्स इन डिफरेंट स्टेट्स ऑफ इंडिया। बहुत ट्रैवल करती हूँ और
जी
बहुत घूमती हूँ। सो आई एम
हाँ
फेमिलियर विद हिमाचल प्रदेश बिकॉज आई रियली लव द स्टेट, नो
जी,
डाउट
आप
अबाउट
जरूर आइएगा
जी।
इट।
हिमाचल प्रदेश में, धर्मशाला में जरूर आइएगा, सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी हिमाचल प्रदेश धर्मशाला।
बिल्कुल।
So
थैंक
थैंक यू मैडम,
Damni,
प्रणाम।
so
प्रणाम मैडम।
Damni Singh want to ask something.
यू। जी,
Yes,
पूछिए।
Damni Singh, I have, she has raised her hand, so you can ask directly. Please give your
जी,
introduction. Yes.
पूछो। हाँ।
Good evening, ma'am. I am Damini Rajesh Singh. Ma'am, I am a research scholar in Department of Political Science and Public Administration, Dr. Hari Singh Gaur University, Sagar.
अच्छा।
Ma'am, I'm also a student of public administration. So while listening your session, it was a very nice session, ma'am. Ma'am, a point which ignited my mind is that we are familiar with the concept of civil service neutrality. So, ma'am, how do you find this neutrality in bureaucracy as a part or a factor or a challenge before public governance in today's period, this Amrit Kaal period? And do you favor it, or are your points in critics of this neutrality?
Earlier, I felt that development administration के संदर्भ में ये neutrality can be a roadblock. In the sense, आप it is very convenient पहले के ज़माने के bureaucrats को कहना कि भाई हम तो सिर्फ इसको we are implementing a law, we are implementing a public policy. जैसे कानून उनको दिया जाता था इम्प्लीमेंट करने के लिए, या कोई लोक नीति की बात होती तो वो तुरंत कह देते वी वॉट एवर इज आवर अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द लॉ एंड द टेक्स्ट, वॉट एवर इज आवर अंडरस्टैंडिंग, हम बस वही करेंगे, उतना ही करेंगे, हम कोई और सवाल करना भी नहीं चाहते, और वी विल नॉट वॉक दैट एक्स्ट्रा माइल टू गिव सर्विस डिलीवरी। एंड दैट एटीट्यूड वो विकास प्रशासन के संदर्भ में created a lot of problems because they never went that extra mile, जिसको कहा जाता है एक्स्ट्रा माइल डिलीवरी के लिए, यानी कि हर एक पर्सन जो बेनिफिशियरी हो सकता है उस कानून या लोक नीति के अंदर, वो ढूंढो, एक्स्ट्रा वॉक करो, दैट एक्स्ट्रा माइल वॉक करके देखो कि द पुअरेस्ट, द मोस्ट डिप्राइव्ड, जो जिनको कानून के बारे में पता नहीं, और जो लोक नीति उनके लिए बनाई गई है उसके बारे में पता नहीं, ऐसे लोग तो एक्सक्लूडेड होंगे ही ना एज बेनिफिशियरीज। कानून उनके लिए है, वो दैट पर्टिकुलर लॉ उनके लिए है, बट इट नेवर रीच्ड देम, और फिर कहा जाता था ये इम्प्लीमेंटेशन गैप है, और इस तरह से ऑलमोस्ट 60% अनइम्प्लीमेंटेड रह जाता था most laws. 100% delivery was a dream that never happened. कोई ना कोई वजह से, and I thought this neutrality एक एक रोड ब्लॉक है जिसकी वजह से कोई इतना एफर्ट नहीं करता। बेसिकली इट इज जस्ट दैट मेंटालिटी, हम इतना एफर्ट क्यों करें, लोग हमारे पास पहुंचेंगे कि भाई देखो हमने ये कानून के बारे में सुना है और लगता है हम बेनिफिशियरी हो सकते हैं, बस हमें मदद कीजिए एंड लेट अस गेट द बेनिफिट ऑफ दैट लॉ। वो एक एटीट्यूड है विच इज ओके इन डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज। डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज में ये एटीट्यूड ठीक है, बट अंडर डेवलप्ड, बैकवर्ड, पुअर, मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल आर इलिटरेट, वहां ये एटीट्यूड नहीं चलता। You have to reach the public, you have to reach the beneficiary, you have to reach the targeted group. So it is called last mile delivery. करने के लिए you have to walk that extra mile to reach that beneficiary. ये एक proactive attitude है जो हमें लगता था और आज भी लगता है कि हमारे ब्यूरोक्रेट्स को पसंद नहीं या करना नहीं चाहते, या दे फील कि हाँ हमारी इतनी ट्रांसफर्स और पोस्टिंग्स होते हैं, इतना ट्रांसफर पोस्टिंग में कहाँ वक्त है, कहाँ समय है, कहाँ हम एक्स्ट्रा वर्क करेंगे भाई। जो आ रहे हैं बेनिफिट के मांगते हैं, वो अगर उस कानून के अंदर बेनिफिशियरी हो सकते हैं दे देते हैं बेनिफिट, बाकी हम घर घर जाएंगे क्या। पर एक्चुअली आइडियली 100% सर्विस डिलीवरी के लिए, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन गैप को ब्रिज करने के लिए वही एटीट्यूड चाहिए जो a Weberian bureaucrat will be unwilling to do, because he thinks I have to be neutral. Why should I walk that extra mile? But to be you have to say that implementation gaps have been bridged in different states of India, not only with central laws, their own laws. And that is why I'm repeatedly saying, ये नहीं कि वेबेरियन ब्यूरोक्रेट आईएएस एंड स्टेट सिविल सर्विस के लोग हर स्टेट में होते हैं, आईएएस वाले भी होते हैं, स्टेट सिविल सर्विस होते हैं, और आजकल थर्ड टायर ऑफ इम्प्लीमेंटेशन एक्चुअली ग्रास रूट्स इम्प्लीमेंटेशन पंचायत करते हैं, पंचायत के पास फंड आ गई है। एंड लुक एट द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल डिविजन ऑफ पावर्स, तो आपको पता चलेगा कि फर्स्ट लेवल पे इम्प्लीमेंटेशन होता है, सेकेंड लेवल पे होता है, थर्ड टायर ऑफ गवर्नेंस पंचायतों में भी होता है। सो हु इज डूइंग ऑल दिस? आप कहेंगे कहीं नहीं होता, ऐसा नहीं है। दैट इज व्हाई आई एम हिंटिंग टू यू रिपीटेडली कि कई स्टेट्स में आप नीति आयोग के ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट इंडेक्स देख लीजिए, नीति आयोग के जो सेवरल इंडिसेस हैं, ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट, इक्विटी, ग्रोथ, कुछ भी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट देख लीजिए, और आपको पता चलेगा कि कई स्टेट्स में बहुत कुछ हुआ है। दैट्स व्हाई दे आर कॉल्ड डेवलप्ड स्टेट्स। कई मिड लेवल अचीवमेंट, मिड लेवल अचीवर्स एंड सम आर वेरी पुअर अचीवर्स। ब्यूरोक्रेट्स तो वही है ना, वही आईएएस वाले बैठे हैं, वही स्टेट सिविल सर्विस वाले बैठे हैं, वहां भी पंचायत है। तो क्यों ऐसा होता है जिससे कि भारतीय नागरिक हमारा तो ओनली वन सिटीजनशिप है, हम डुअल सिटीजनशिप नहीं है इंडिया में। सो मॉरली सिटीजन को क्या कहा जाता है? रिसीवर ऑफ पब्लिक गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज, एंड मॉरली वन सिटीजन इज इक्वल टू अनदर सिटीजन। तो फिर क्यों ये डिफरेंशिएशन इन एज अ रेसिपिएंट? जस्ट बिकॉज इन द प्लेस यू आर इन वो बैड इम्प्लीमेंटर्स हैं, वहां ब्यूरोक्रेट्स काम नहीं कर रहे हैं, वहां सर्विस डिलीवरी वीक है, तो आपको वो पब्लिक गुड्स एंड सर्विस नहीं मिल रही है। जबकि भारतीय नागरिक होने की वजह से आपको कहीं भी आप जाए सेम सर्विस डिलीवरी, सेम स्टैंडर्ड्स होनी चाहिए थी, बट इट्स नॉट हैपनिंग। और आप इंटरनल माइग्रेशन को देख लीजिए, हैरान हो जाएंगे, चौंकाने वाली बात है। जब वो माइग्रेंट लेबर क्राइसिस हुआ कोविड टाइम्स में, व्हाट इज द लेसन यू गेट? व्हाट इज द वे इंटरनल माइग्रेशन इतना हो क्यों रहा है? बिकॉज जो मिनिमम वेज एक्ट कहीं इंप्लीमेंट होता है, कहीं नहीं होता है। कुछ स्टेट्स में मिनिमम वेजेस सबको मिल रहे हैं, मेनी स्टेट्स को नहीं मिल रहे हैं। और जब कोविड हो गया, किस तरह से दीज लेबरर्स वे ट्रीटेड इन डिफरेंट स्टेट्स ऑफ इंडिया, उनका रिकॉर्ड देख लीजिए। Therefore, one nation, one ration card scheme came. बात ये है कि ये सब सोचने वाली बात है। इनइक्वालिटी कहाँ से आ रही है? बाहर के देश से नहीं आ रही है। ये चाइना या यूएसए या कोई और स्टेट आपके देश के अंदर की इनइक्वालिटी नहीं कर रही है। All the problems come from within your state, within India, within your country. Don't blame the British now. बहुत साल हो गए, वो चले गए। पहले तो हमारे जमाने के लोग फॉर एवरीथिंग यूज्ड टू ब्लेम द कॉलोनियल मास्टर्स, द सो कॉल्ड कॉलोनियल मास्टर्स। अरे कहाँ है वो आज के दिन? आपके अपने पॉलिटिकल रिजिम को पूछो, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को पूछो, पंचायत को पूछो, सबके पास पावर है, सबके पास पैसे हैं, सबके पास इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के ये है। सो डेवलपमेंट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में जिस तरह से की मानसिकता चाहिए, वो मानसिकता ए स्टेट में है ब्यूरोक्रेट्स की, बी में थोड़ा थोड़ा है, सी में बिल्कुल ही नहीं है। दिस इज रिडिकुलस। प्लीज टेक द ब्लेम एवरी स्टेट। इसीलिए तो मैं कहती हूँ कंपटीशन अच्छा है। ये जो इंडिसेस कॉम्पिटिटिवली दिखाया जा रहा है, डेटा है और डेटा को डेवलपमेंट के लिए यूज करो। ये बैकवर्ड डिस्ट्रिक्ट प्रोग्राम में देखो डेटा फॉर डेवलपमेंट के बारे में क्या लिखा गया है। आप लोग देखिए भारत सरकार में आज के दिन क्या हो रहा है। इम्प्लीमेंटेशन गैप्स को ब्रिज किया जा रहा है, सर्विस डिलीवरी इंप्रूव किया जा रहा है, एंड सो मेनी स्कीम्स विद सो मेनी नेम्स हैव कम। असली बात सिर्फ एक ही है, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन गैप्स को ब्रिज करना कम कर दो। भारत के कोई भी नागरिक कोई भी स्टेट में चले जाए उसको सेम लेवल ऑफ पब्लिक गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज मिलेंगे। डिफरेंशिएटेड ट्रीटमेंट नहीं होगा एक लेबरर की। वो कोई स्टेट में जाएगा उसको मिनिमम वेज मिलेगा, मेडिकल बेनिफिट्स मिलेगा, ये मिलेगा, और कोई स्टेट में कुछ नहीं मिलता। तो these things have to need research, need serious thinking. Don't blame foreign countries for everything. Don't blame 75 years back और जो ब्रिटिश चले गए उनको। हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एक्सेलेंट है, हमारे जो पॉलिटिको एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव मॉडल एक्सेलेंट है। We have done huge achievements in the developing world. We have kept our basic structure intact and we have achieved more than any other developing country. Despite diversity, despite problems, we have achieved a lot also. That is why when we talk of governance, public governance, I don't mean central government only. Central government, state government, local governance. सबके पास पावर है, सबके पास पैसे हैं, सबके पास टैक्स अदा करने की राइट है, पर सबके अचीवमेंट लेवल और परफॉर्मेंस एक जैसा नहीं है। क्यों? ये सबसे बड़ा सवाल है रिसर्चर्स के लिए। एंड ब्लेम द राइट प्लेस एंड द राइट एजेंसी फॉर इट। डोंट गो ऑन ब्लेमिंग। जब आपके स्टेट गवर्नमेंट की प्रॉब्लम है, आप केंद्रीय सरकार को ब्लेम मत करिए। आपके डिस्ट्रिक्ट का लेवल का गवर्नेंस की प्रॉब्लम है, आप स्टेट को ब्लेम मत करिए। आपके पंचायत काम नहीं कर रही है, डिस्ट्रिक्ट गवर्नेंस को ब्लेम मत करिए। स्टॉप द ब्लेम गेम। टेक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी फॉर योर अचीवमेंट्स, टेक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी फॉर योर फेलियर्स, एंड सी what India can achieve in the Amrit Kaal period in 2047. I am sure we can deliver on our SDG goals, जो सबसे बड़ी world agenda of good governance है today. That has been already set, and we have to achieve the SDG goals by 2030 in order for India to be called a developed nation by 2047. And it is entirely possible to do it.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I think Damni had gotten the answer.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
And then the
But
next,
ma'am, I had one more doubt, if Vikash, if ma'am, if allows me to ask.
दामनी जी, प्लीज आप हम लोग थोड़ा सा एक दो क्वेश्चन लेने के बाद में आप पूछ सकते हैं, नो डाउट।
Okay.
हाँ,
Okay,
so
no issue.
I want to invite to Seema Soni, and after this Himanshu will be asked. So Seema, you can ask directly. Yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yes. नमस्ते मैडम। नमस्ते
Yes.
विकास सर।
अरे नमस्ते।
विकास सर को मैं सबसे पहले विकास सर को थैंक यू भी बोलना चाहती हूँ। मेरी मदर के साथ मैं अस्पताल में हूँ, और लेकिन जब आया कि लिंक को ज्वाइन करें, तो चूंकि मम्मी को मैं दवाई दे चुकी थी तो मैं सुनना चाहती थी, और मुझे सुन के लगा कि काश मेरी आज मम्मी ठीक होती तो मैं बहुत पहले लिंक ज्वाइन करती। और मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा मैम, आपने हिंदी में भी मतलब बताया, क्योंकि मैं हिंदी माध्यम से हूँ, और जो लोक प्रशासन की पूरी एक तस्वीर आपने हमारे सामने की, तो निश्चित रूप से मैम मैं भी काफी कुछ सीख के अपने स्टूडेंट्स को थोड़ा थोड़ा बताना चाहूंगी। और मैम मुझे आज का लेक्चर बहुत अच्छा लगा मैम, थैंक यू वेरी मच।
थैंक यू, थैंक यू। मैं बिल्कुल हिंदी में बोलूंगी, अगर आप सवाल हिंदी में
जी मैम, जी मैम। और विकास सर को भी थैंक यू कि इतने अच्छे अच्छे स्पीकर्स वो लेकर आते हैं, और हम लोग आप सबको उनके माध्यम से सुन पाते हैं। थैंक यू विकास सर।
थैंक यू मैम, थैंक यू। हाँ हिमांशु, आप कुछ पूछ रहे थे? यस हिमांशु।
यस मैम, मेरा क्वेश्चन है मैम, थोड़ा 2 स्टेज क्वेश्चन है
जी।
सबसे पहले आपने कहा कि इंडियन ब्यूरोक्रेसी वाजंट ट्रेन्ड फॉर द डेवलपमेंट चैलेंजेस बट फॉर द रेवेन्यू कलेक्शन। तो मैम हमारे लिए बेसिकली जो डेवलपमेंट चैलेंज थे वो ऑब्वियसली नए थे, तो एक लर्निंग एक्सपीरियंस था हमारे सामने। मतलब जैसे एग्जांपल भी आता है, सुकुमार सेन पहले इलेक्शन कमिश्नर थे, उन्हें कोई आइडिया नहीं था किस तरीके से इलेक्शन कंडक्ट करवाना है। और उसके बाद में यू हैव रेफरेंस्ड अ लिटिल बिट अबाउट गुन्नार मिडाल्स कंसेप्शन ऑफ सॉफ्ट स्टेट, कि उन्होंने इंडिया को सॉफ्ट स्टेट कहा था। तो मैम एक सॉफ्ट स्टेट से हम अब जैसे कि हम धीरे धीरे बढ़ रहे हैं कि स्मार्ट स्टेट की तरफ, नॉट हार्ड स्टेट, आई वुडंट से हार्ड स्टेट। तो मैम एक नॉन कोअर्सिव मेजर्स ले करके, जैसा आपने कहा नॉन कोअर्सिव मेजर्स के साथ थोड़ा मुश्किल होता है एक डेवलपमेंट चैलेंज को एड्रेस करना। तो मैम नॉन कोअर्सिव मेजर्स को, डेमोक्रेसी को साथ में लेकर के, विदाउट बीइंग टू मच अथॉरिटेटिव, हाउ शुड द गवर्नमेंट टारगेट दीज डिसेंट्रलाइज्ड प्रॉब्लम्स?
You see, that's precisely जो मैंने अभी कहा कि अचीवमेंट लेवल का जो पेस होता है ना, स्पीड, दैट स्पीड थोड़ा स्लो हो जाता है इन डेमोक्रेसी। वी ऑल नो, अब वर्ल्ड ओवर ये समस्या है, सिर्फ हमारी नहीं। वो जो स्पीड से अथॉरिटेरियन स्टेट्स डेवलपमेंटल वर्क या कोई और वर्क इम्प्लीमेंटेशन बोलिए, कोई अपना पब्लिक पॉलिसी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन, पब्लिक पॉलिसी कैन बी अबाउट सोशल सेक्टर, एनी सेक्टर। अथॉरिटेरियन स्टेट्स तो बहुत है ना इन द वर्ल्ड। ये मत सोचिए कि सारी डेमोक्रेसीज हैं। इन द 193 कंट्रीज ऑफ द यूएन, ज्यादातर मतलब कंट्रीज आर इन सम वे नॉन डेमोक्रेटिक। ये मत सोचिए कि चारों तरफ डेमोक्रेसी फैली हुई है, ऐसा नहीं है। इन ऑल द रिकॉग्नाइज्ड कंट्रीज ऑफ द यूएन, they are some kind of non-democracies, I would say. Pure democracies कमी है। They usually say कि अमेरिका और यूरोप के कुछ countries है pure democracies. Others, if you go by constitution and rule of law, तो pure democracies बहुत ही कम है। फिर और कई देश ऐसे हैं डेवलपिंग वर्ल्ड के जो अपने आप को डेमोक्रेसी कहते हैं, पर उनका मार्कर्स ठीक नहीं है। And then there are others who are simply non-democracies. तो क्या वहां पे स्टेट डेवलपमेंट नहीं कर रही है? ऑटोक्रेसीज में, अथॉरिटेरियन स्टेट्स में, वन पार्टी स्टेट्स में, क्या वहां डेवलपमेंट नहीं हो रहा है? हो रहा है, बल्कि ज्यादा स्पीड से हो रही है। बहुत स्पीड से डेवलपमेंट हो रही है नॉन डेमोक्रेसीज, इन अथॉरिटेरियन कंट्रीज। तो इसीलिए गुन्नार मिर्दल ने जब ये डिस्टिंक्शन किया, उनको बोलना था एक अपॉलजी। ही वाज मेकिंग एन अपॉलजी फॉर डेमोक्रेसीज। ही वाज मेकिंग एन अपॉलजी बाय सेइंग बेचारे डेमोक्रेसीज क्या करे, वो कोअर्सिव मेथड्स तो यूज नहीं कर सकते। तो कितना जल्दी वो काम करेंगे? ब्यूरोक्रेट्स भी ढंग से काम नहीं करते, लोअर लेवल वो लोग भी ढंग से काम नहीं करते, करप्शन इतना है, तो स्टेट सॉफ्ट हो जाता है डेमोक्रेसी में, तो स्पीड कम हो जाता है। इट्स अ यूनिवर्सल फेनोमेनन, नथिंग टू डू विद ओनली इंडिया। You didn't say India is an example of a soft state only. ऐसा नहीं। So आज के दिन भी वही चैलेंज है। Unless you've decided to let go of your democracy, completely change कर दो सब कुछ, भाई हम चाइना बन जाए। भाई इंडिया के कोई नागरिक को पूछो वो क्या चाइना बनना चाहते हैं, तो वो कहेंगे नहीं, चाइना तो हम बनना नहीं चाहते। Then how long will they wait also for development? मेरा उल्टा सवाल ये भी है कि भाई ठीक है, हम चाइना नहीं बनना चाहते, वन पार्टी स्टेट नहीं बनना चाहते, इसलिए हम ब्यूरोक्रेसी को माफ, पॉलिटिकल रेजिम को माफ, डेमोक्रेसी को माफ, कितना ही गलती करे, करप्ट हो, कुछ भी ना करे, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन गैप्स रहे, और हम फिर माफ 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 करते जाएं। ये भी ठीक नहीं है एटीट्यूड। आई थिंक देयर आर वेज ऑफ डूइंग थिंग्स इन अ डेमोक्रेसी which are perfectly non-coercive, perfectly acceptable. वो पॉलिटिकल विल चाहिए जिससे योर पॉलिटिको एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव मॉडल गेट्स द राइट सिग्नल्स फ्रॉम अबव एंड डज द वर्क। तो एग्जांपल के तौर पे मैंने क्या कहा, लुक एट द हाईएस्ट अचीवर्स इन इंडियन स्टेट्स इटसेल्फ। यहीं पे तो दिखाई दे रहा है इंडियन स्टेट्स क्या डेमोक्रेटिक नहीं है, वो क्या इंडिया से हटके कुछ है? ऐसा तो नहीं। तो आप नीति आयोग का सबसे बड़ा काम इंडिसेस तैयार करना, डेटा रेडी करना, एक दूसरे को कंपटीशन में लाना, इसको कहा जाता है शेमिंग एंड गेमिंग। डेटा से शेमिंग एंड गेमिंग करो, बताओ क्यों इतना पीछे हो भाई? Who is responsible? Government of USA and China are not. Who is responsible? Data layout. Data for development is a big tool in the hands of the public, in the hands of civil society, in the hands of citizens today to shame and gain. Right जगह पे दोष देना सीखो, right जगह पे blame करो. Then who is saying that I refuse to take this theory कि all democracies have to be soft states? Then you are excusing where blame has to be put. No, democracies do not necessarily have to be soft states. They can be hard states, performing states, efficient states, and high achiever states. और ये हमारे देश में इतना वैरायटी है ना, डाइवर्सिटी है, यहीं से तो पता चल जाता है रिकॉर्ड कि देख लो 10 ऐसे स्टेट्स हैं जो हर एक ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट इंडिसेस, ग्रोथ इंडिसेस, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इंडिसेस में आगे चले गए हैं, कहाँ पहुंच गए. एंड लेट मी टेल यू विदाउट अपॉलॉजीज, हमारे 5 साउथ इंडियन स्टेट्स आर एब्सोल्युटली मार्वेलस इन गुड गवर्नेंस. उनका इंडिसेस देख लीजिए, ये 5 साउथ इंडियन स्टेट्स एंड सम वेस्टर्न इंडियन स्टेट्स ऑल्सो. हिमाचल प्रदेश को देख लीजिए आप, मिजोरम को देख लीजिए, छोटी सी ये है, हिमाचल प्रदेश को देख लो. सो दीज आर सम एक्सेप्शंस. वेस्टर्न इंडिया के बेल्ट में 2-3 ऐसे स्टेट्स देख लो और 5 साउथ इंडियन स्टेट्स को देख लो. एवरीथिंग में वो आगे हैं. क्या वो इंडिया के अंदर नहीं है? क्या वो समवेयर एल्स है? क्यों उनका स्टेट में सब कुछ आगे है? एंड अदर्स मिडिल लेवल अचीवर्स हैं एंड ऑफ कोर्स लो अचीवर्स हैं. सो डेमोक्रेसी के साथ सॉफ्टनेस को जोड़ना और एक एक्सक्यूज बनाना फॉर नॉन परफॉर्मेंस, दिस आई कैन नॉट टेक. विद इन योर ओन कंट्री you have high achievers, mid-level achievers, low achievers. And today, human condition, human development, वो भी आप डेटा से उसका कंडीशन देख सकते हो. Therefore, governance today, डेटा को सही वे में यूज करो, लोगों के सामने लाओ. And you should understand there's a difference between performance politics and डेवलपमेंट पॉलिटिक्स. डेवलपमेंट गेम है एक, वहां बहुत किस्म की पॉलिटिक्स चल रही है बिकॉज देयर इज बिग मनी इन्वॉल्व्ड. बट आम जनता जब वोट दी जाएगी ना, उनके लिए तो सिर्फ परफॉर्मेंस पॉलिटिक्स ही होना चाहिए सामने. वो आइडेंटिटी क्यों देख रहा है अपने MP, MLA और पंचायत का जो जिसके लिए वो वोट देने जाएगा? आइडेंटिटी देखना जरूरी है उसका परफॉर्मेंस देखो बहुत है और कुछ मत देखो. And vote. So you have changed the politics of this country through good governance and performance politics. So my contention continuously is that don't keep blaming democracy for everything, and don't give excuses of being a soft state for non-performance, non-achievement. In India, we have examples and more examples of good governance in India itself. उनसे एक दूसरे से सीखो. That's it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Himanshu, any more question you want to ask? I think
Himanshu will revise his
yeah,
papers.
Himanshu
Maybe you will
is
revise
very
your
curious
papers
scholar.
now.
He's my junior. So I know. Okay.
Actually, I had one more question, but ma'am.
Yeah, Himanshu.
Please go ahead, please.
Ma'am, actually, I asked this previously that I wanted to ask a 2-stage question. The next question was that when India, you also addressed about the developmental dynamics. The various states in India took a very different pathway based on their geographical location and their availability of resources. So I personally think, I might be wrong, that Gujarat and West Bengal, the reason that they did so well is because they were in the command of resources that the other states or maybe of hilly regions don't get. like MP is doing remarkably well in agriculture, but on other parameters we are falling behind. So I think that there is something
No.
that
नेचुरल रिसोर्स में डिफरेंसेस होना, ये दैट इज बाउंड टू हैपन. देखिए, किसी एक स्टेट की हिस्ट्री में फर्क है, हिस्टोरिकल लेगेसीज में फर्क है, नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज में फर्क है, पॉपुलेशन डेंसिटी में फर्क है, अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ बेसिक रिसोर्सेज फॉर इंडस्ट्रियल डेवलपमेंट में फर्क है. ये तो बिल्कुल मानते हैं हम, बिल्कुल मानते हैं हम, that much difference will be there. But what was the planning commission doing earlier? What does the finance commission do now? हाँ, अब देख लीजिए, the idea is ये inequalities which are natural, हाँ, टेरेन की वजह से और पॉपुलेशन की वजह से और whatever, उसको ब्रिज करने के लिए सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट हैज एक मैंडेट. जो सबसे बैकवर्ड रीजन्स ऑफ द कंट्री है, उनका जो उनको जो ग्रांट्स दिया जाता है वो सबसे अलग है. एंड सम कॉम्पेंसेशन फॉर नेचुरल रिसोर्स वेरिएशंस हैव ऑलवेज बीन गिवन. ऑन बैकवर्ड रीजन्स डेवलपमेंट ग्रांट वाज मेंट फॉर दिस ओनली. सो इट्स नॉट दैट इक्वलाइजिंग करने के लिए कभी ग्रांट नहीं दिया जाता था या नहीं दिया जा रहा है. The kind of money that went to Northeast at one time and the kind of money that is going into Jammu and Kashmir now is simply because of this, कि disturbed area है या backward area है, कि कुछ ना कुछ यहाँ problem है, तो कौन देखभाल करेगा भाई? और states तो नहीं देंगे ना, तो center has to take charge of that. Center has always taken charge of that. तो फाइनेंस कमीशन का रोल ही क्या था, आप बताओ? प्लानिंग कमीशन की रोल ही क्या थी? इक्वालिटी इन नेचुरल एंडाउमेंट्स इंडिया में कभी थी नहीं, ना होगी.
पब्लिक प्राइवेट पार्टनरशिप
वो बिल्कुल अब ज्यादा मार्केट है. 1990 से तो ये तो जानकारी हमें है. द बेसिक मॉडल ऑफ इकोनॉमी एंड गवर्नेंस चेंज्ड. मार्केट ज्यादा से ज्यादा बढ़ाओ, स्टेट को ज्यादा से ज्यादा कम करते जाओ. This started from 1990s. Free investment allowed, market allowed, बाहर से capital allowed, MNCs allowed. क्या नहीं अलाउ कर दिया? उससे हमारी ग्रोथ तो बढ़ी ना, from 3% to 8-9. कोविड की वजह से फिर कम, and again we are the largest growing economy in the world. तो अब वो बात नहीं है कि हम ग्रो नहीं कर रहे. आप 1990s के बाद गरीबी हटी नहीं रही है. अब 1990s के गरीबी की फिगर देखो, आज का देखो. रिसोर्सेज भी उस समय क्या थी, आज देखो. तो पब्लिक प्राइवेट डिवाइड के बाद मार्केट स्टेट डिवाइड जो चेंज हो गया अनऑल्टरेबली सिंस 1990s, इरिवर्सिबली हो गया ना, वो आप अभी बदल नहीं सकते. It is more and more of market and less and less of state. अब state क्या है? Command and control state नहीं है. अभी it is called regulatory state. They will only allow a level playing field. उनका काम है level playing field ensure करना. अब state has become regulatory, not that command and control. तो फिर ऐसे सिनारियो में जब मोर एंड मोर ऑफ मार्केट एंड लेस एंड लेस ऑफ स्टेट, तो स्टेट को करना क्या चाहिए? आगे का अमृतकाल जनरेशन का एजेंडा स्टेट का क्या है? पॉवर्टी हटाओ. हाँ, जहां जो कम है वहां पहुंचा दो ताकि इक्वलाइजिंग हो जाए. ग्रोथ तो ऑलरेडी बहुत बढ़ चुका है, उसको इक्वलाइजिंग करो बेनिफिट्स को. एंड सबसे बड़ी बात, ये जो गवर्नेंस की वजह से, जो बैड गवर्नेंस का हो या जो भी हो की वजह से, एक सिटीजन के राइट्स एंड एंटाइटलमेंट्स टू पब्लिक गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज डिफरेंशिएटेड हो गया है. उसको हटाओ. उसको हटाना स्टेट का काम है. गरीबी हटाना स्टेट का काम है. और आज के दिन तो हम कहेंगे एक ही काम है, SDGs को implement करो by 2030 and make India a developed nation by 2047. ये तो world में कहा गया, हम नहीं कह रहे. Those who achieve SDG goals by 2047 will be called developed countries. तो हमारा यही एजेंडा है कि कोई नया बात नहीं है, कोई नई बात नहीं है. तो इतना तो हम कर सकते हैं. अगर अभी फिर बहस हम करने लग गए, हाउ वी विल अचीव, हाउ कैन वी अचीव, वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू अचीव. व्हाई? बिकॉज वी आर अ सॉफ्ट स्टेट. We are a soft state. We are a democracy. We are not China. China has already achieved all the SDGs. तो हम तो this is then I refuse to take that theory. I refuse to buy that theory कि democracy के साथ